Good evening, folks. We're going to get started. So welcome to the Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025 meeting of the City of Worcester Planning Board. My name is Albert LaValle. I'll chair tonight's meeting. Before we begin, a couple of brief announcements concerning how our meeting will proceed tonight. First, I note tonight's meeting is in a hybrid format, which means you can participate both in person here at City Hall or remotely. To participate remotely, you can log in via computer by going to worcestermass.zoomgov.com/J/1603-0221-385, or by calling in at 1-669-254-5252 and entering access code 160-3022-1385 and then the pound key. We do ask that folks participating remotely, please mute your phone line when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. You can do that by pressing *6 on your phone or the little red microphone in the Zoom app. Doing the same thing again will also unmute your line. Next, I note this is a public meeting, which means it is both being recorded and broadcast, and that minutes will be taken and published at a later date. To help with that minute-taking process, we do ask all speakers participating in person to use a microphone. To please clearly identify yourself each time you speak. And the first time you speak, please also state your city or town of residence for the record. To help maintain an orderly meeting, please address all comments and questions through the chair, that's me, rather than directly to any of the other speakers or applicants. There are a number of items on our agenda being postponed tonight. I'm going to read through those shortly. If you're here on one of those items, we do recommend, well, first, know that no additional notice will be sent to you prior to the next meeting. We'll say what meeting it's getting postponed to, but we also recommend you call the planning division either the day of or the day prior to the next meeting to confirm if the item is going to be heard. It's not uncommon for things to be postponed multiple times before they're taken up by this board. Once an item is called, there will be a brief presentation of that item, followed by any additional comments or clarifications from members of the city staff. Then there'll be an opportunity for anyone from the public to speak on that item before we proceed to board discussion and action. When it comes to public comment, we take anyone in the room first and then ask folks online if they'd like to speak. There's a slide up right now explaining how to raise your hand when that time comes. It's an icon on your computer, but if you're on the phone only, it will be *9 will be what you need to do to raise your hand. Okay, finally, I note all applicants should be aware that approvals are generally conditional. Decisions are generally signed by the board at the next meeting and where appropriate filed with the city clerk the following day, which is what begins any appeals periods. Decisions are typically not released to the applicant until all conditions of approval have been satisfactorily addressed. It is the applicant's responsibility to address conditions of approval, and a lack of doing so may result in delays or enforcements. Applicants are asked to call the planning division if they have any questions about any of that. Okay, moving into postponements, the following items. Item number 3, 0 Farrington Street, a definitive site plan, and 81G, private street improvement. The request is to postpone the public meeting to August 13th, 25, and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 4, 25. Item number 4, 270 Webster Street and 21 through 25 Clover Street, a definitive subdivision plan. The request is to postpone the public meeting to August 13, 25, and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 4, 25. Item number 5, 67 Chester Street, a definitive site plan. Request to postpone the public meeting to August 13th, 25, and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 4, 25. Item 6, 7 Longsworth Road, a definitive frontage subdivision plan. The request to postpone the public meeting to August 13, 25, and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 4, 25. Item number 7, 100 Research Drive, a definitive site plan. The request is to postpone the public meeting to August 13th, 25, and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 4, 25. And item 11C, 123 Hamilton Street, which is an A&R. The request is for a leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Make a motion to postpone items 3 through 7 and to leave to withdraw without prejudice item 11C.
Second.
On the motion, Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Delera.
Yes.
Mr. Toomey. Yes. Mr. McCormick.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 5-0.
Through the chair, before you call up the first item, I just want to make a quick correction. During your intro speech, I think you might have an outdated script. The access code for this meeting is 161-731-4979. I'll repeat, 161-731-4979.
Thank you. Okay, so first item we're going to call tonight is item number 100 and 120 Thomas Street. This will be a public hearing for a special permit in the Commercial Corridor Overlay District to modify some dimensional requirements related to off-street parking and a public meeting for a parking plan. I do note that this is a continued item, and as it's a continued item, only members who are on the board at the time it was continued are eligible to vote, which tonight will be myself, Mr. McCormick, Mr. King, and Mr. Delara.
Hey, do you want to sit up here? Sure. Yeah. Okay, sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey. Tonight, representing the applicant. To my left is Matt Bombachi. He is a civil engineer of record. I believe also on the Zoom is Phil Schwachman, who is principal of the applicant. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, this is a continuance of a previously filed application in connection with the redevelopment of this site. As you can see here from the aerial, this is the property. And just as a reminder, this site is within the CCOD-D. This is a downtown sub-area of the CCOD and the BG6. As depicted here, just as a reminder, this is a corner lot surrounded by Summer Street to the east, Thomas Street to the south, and School Street to the north. These two parcels that are shown here in this aerial, the main development parcel is on the right, or the easterly side, to the east, to the right of the green property line there, and to the left is currently a vacant, formerly improved site, which used to house a couple of warehouse distribution buildings. That is 100 Thomas Street. The development site is 120 Thomas Street. Michelle, if you could advance to the next slide, please. This is an historic aerial that depicts those two warehouse buildings that I just mentioned before. And again, this is the entire site, which currently is divided by ownership, affiliate owners, but technically different ownership. This just demonstrates the existence of the building to the right, which is the building that's being, there's an infill project that's occurring in connection with this project, as well as demonstration of some of the historic parking that had previously occurred at this site. Next slide, please. And one more slide, please. These are depictions. We had shared this with the board last time, but just to remind you, these are existing conditions, street views, photographs of the building. This is the former V&A building. It is currently occupied by various medical office tenants. Next slide, please. This is a depiction, vantage point from Thomas Street, looking at the facade of the building. And one more. And then as a reminder, this is a rendering that was also shared with the board the last time we met that shows the depiction of the improvements. The main improvements with respect to the building include about a 900 square foot infill development. Currently on the right side of the building is an entryway for vehicles that's being closed off, developed, fit up for SOS, which is Success on the Spectrum. This is a new tenant that will be occupying a portion of the building. That infill, again, is about 900 square feet. In addition to that, there was also some improvements with respect to a ramp that was built and other facade improvements with respect to this building. Next slide, please. So I'm only showing this slide, again, just as a quick reminder of what was initially previously submitted as our application We had sought parking plan approval as well as a special permit. One of the components of the special permit that we were seeking involved approval with respect to exceedance of the maximum parking that is allowed in the CCOD. We had, under this initial proposal, we had proposed to essentially combine the two parcels, again, currently under different ownership, combine the two, reconfigure all of the parking pretty much, and develop a net total of 130 parking spaces. Currently, there's about 90 parking spaces that serve the medical office building. This proposal, as we had initially submitted, would allow for about 130 parking spaces. And so we met with the board. We got some comments from the board with respect to the number of parking spaces, as well as some other comments with respect to the operation, movement of pedestrians and vehicles within the site based on this larger parking lot development. So with that feedback, which I think was all good feedback, the project team huddled up. We determined that rather than making this more surface parking area, our client determined that he would instead contract significantly the amount of parking and basically retain the existing layout design of the current parking on the 120 Thomas Street side. And instead of merging those two parcels into common ownership with respect to the 100 Thomas Street parcel, which is again on the left side, leave that for future development. So essentially what we're looking to do is restripe the vast majority of the spaces, restripe the existing spaces, maintain the majority of the drive aisle circulation within the current configuration of the 120 Thomas Street site. And this is it may be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see that here's the site, the lot division. You can see the red there is the current lot line dividing 100 and 100 Thomas Street. We are proposing to make that pretty much a straight line that will cut through the site, allowing for 100 Thomas Street to be more rectangular in shape, which would allow for future development, a hotel or some type of other commercial development conducive to the CCOD. And as you can see here, maybe a little bit difficult to tell, but the vast majority of the parking that we're proposing for 120 Thomas Street, which is the development site, the vast majority of those 90 parking spaces are being retained, maintained, restriped. There are about 13 parking spaces, including some ADA spaces, that are being slightly reconfigured in order to accommodate some of the slight access change along Thomas Street. But the rest of the parking and its maneuverability is basically being retained. Next slide, please. And here is Matt's layout plan, which depicts this maybe a little more clearly. I mentioned there's a slight change with respect to the access. The initial proposal had proposed a much wider curb cut along Thomas Street, along the bottom, as well as a kiosk. There's a kiosk there now. We're going to retain that kiosk. However, based on comments, I believe from you, Mr. Chair, we determined that we would instead break up that curb cut into two smaller curb cuts, allowing for ingress and egress, as well as still maintaining that kiosk at the bottom there along Thomas Street. In addition, as I said, there are some 13 in total parking spaces that are being slightly reconfigured. However, majority of the landscaping that we had proposed previously is being retained, again, on the 120 Thomas Street side. So there will be some aesthetic improvements with respect to the vegetation, the landscaping, both on the Thomas Street side as well as along the School Street side, which is the northern part, upper part on the plan. There are some minor improvements with respect to lighting. There are some comments with respect to lighting, which we can get into in a moment. Otherwise, this is essentially the project. We've worked through the DPRS memo with staff, talking with Rose and Michelle, and we're in agreement with the majority of the comments that are set forth in the DPRS memo. It's been gone through a couple of iterations. There are some highlighted items, which I'm assuming that members have, the latest version here, which we can talk about. But that's pretty much what we wanted to say formally, and of course, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Additional comments on this item from city staff?
Sure, through the chair, this is Michelle Smith in the city's planning division. So as a reminder, this is in front of you for parking plan approval for the layout and reconfiguration of the parking lot itself because the access is changing in addition to the special permit. So you were previously hearing a special permit to exceed the maximum number of spaces in the prior iteration. If we go back a few slides, which was as you're seeing on the screen now, and the applicant has heard the feedback from the board and made revisions to that proposal to align with what you're seeing on this screen here. So, and I'm just going to move forward to this plan because it shows the landscape improvements, which is going to be the focus of my comments. I won't belabor all of the different comments in the staff memo. If the board members have questions, I'm happy to answer those, but I think at this point, we're in agreement with most of the conditions. The highlighted items are ones that maybe are a point of disagreement between staff and the applicant that the board should weigh in on. Essentially, the things that don't comply with respect to the special permit that the applicant's seeking to deviate from the standards and therefore in front of you all for are the drive aisle widths. Typically, we require a 24-foot drive aisle. Today, the lot does not comply, and as it's reconfigured, will also not comply. The narrowest point, I believe, is 22 feet in terms of that drive aisle as it's proposed to be reconfigured. At some locations, it will be compliant or slightly in excess of that, but not by much. But for the most part, throughout the site, it's just less than 24 feet. So staff doesn't necessarily have any great concerns around that. And then the other component of that is that the required landscape buffer on the perimeter, which is the northwestern corner where my cursor is, if you can see that on the screen, in this area here, essentially is required to be 3 feet between the parking stalls and the property line. And there is a variable width, as you can see, there's kind of an angle there that's about a foot in, I think, the narrowest point. I'll have the project team correct me if I have that number wrong. I know that was a dimension we were looking to have labeled on the plan, but less than the required 3 feet. So the applicant's in front of you for those two reasons relative to the special permit. So not a whole lot, but it is quite a bit different from what you saw last, which was much wider drive aisles, wider curb cuts, and additional requests for exceeding the driveway widths. So we're in a much more kind of CCOD focused development in the way that the revisions have been made. The majority of the comments that staff have at this point are kind of along the same lines to continue those same kind of concepts of the CCOD, really looking for additional landscaping, making comments around fencing. So I'm going to walk you through just briefly the items that we have flagged to kind of talk about my understanding in terms of staff's perspective, and then the applicant can offer kind of their perspective as to why they'd like to see the condition changed, and the board can ultimately make a decision either way. So on page 2, under the CCOD special permit, there are 2 items for discussion, and I will have the applicant team correct me if I have any of this wrong. We had a request to provide a pedestrian connection out to Summer Street along the northern edge of the building. So you can see there's a loading area here where there's an existing existing and proposed sidewalk extension which goes to the building, and we had hoped to have that extension continue out and connect to Summer Street. So I know we discussed this previously, and I know the applicant would prefer not to provide this, so that's something that we had requested. And then we are specifically requesting that the project comply with the interior and perimeter tree planting requirements. So those are the minimum zoning requirements for planting trees around the perimeter of a lot and within the lot based on the number of spaces and its relationship to adjacent property lines and what those uses are. So in this case, mostly adjacent to the street. That dictates where the trees are required to be planted. So they would like to have a waiver from the interior tree requirements, which would mean that this condition might need to be adjusted. And then as it relates to the parking plan, there are a number of requests for modifications there. First, for 1A, around the additional shade trees that staff is requesting, just to clarify for the board members, in this area, and I'll use the cursor, which you may or may not be able to see very well, but Every 25 feet along the street where this parking bank here is, there's a requirement for a tree to be planted. So today, the site does not comply with that. As you can see, the existing three trees, but they're all kind of clustered. So every 25 feet, we would need a shade tree. So we are recommending that they just come into compliance with that requirement. So that would be 3 additional trees that need to be planted along that area. And then in addition, there is a requirement for 1 tree to be planted in this northwestern corner here along the street, again, buffering the parking stall from the street. So that is A. B is a request to plant additional interior shade trees. So this parking lot, because all of these spaces are configured in a way that they don't necessarily abut a landscape perimeter, the majority of them end up being what we call interior spaces, kind of your shopping plaza style parking configuration. And so we're looking for shade trees in the ordinance to provide the maximum amount of shade on those parking stalls in order to help cool off that hot impervious surface. So they're intended to be kind of sprinkled throughout to, again, reduce temperatures and help provide shade. In this case, the applicant is trying to preserve the number of parking spaces and is preferring to not install those trees and is seeking that the board consider granting a waiver for those. Obviously, the site as it exists today does not comply with that requirement, but again, with the alterations, we're looking for that to come into compliance with those minimum standards. So that would require them, based on the number of trees that they're showing here, there are 2 that they are proposing that would be considered interior trees. They are required to have 8, so 6 additional trees would be required to meet the ordinance. We had a last minute update, and I think there is a typo in that, so we would just be looking to see the additional plantings come into compliance with that requirement. So again, 2 are currently proposed, so we'd be looking for a total of 6 trees that would basically make the difference to be provided. We understand that the applicant may not be able to provide them within the parking lot, given that they are trying to preserve the number of spaces, and ultimately, it's up to the board to make that decision, but we would ask if you consider waiving the strict compliance component of where those trees get allocated on the site, that you still preserve the overall number of trees and have those additional trees be planted somewhere else on the site, just to make sure that we're keeping the shade effect on the property if it's not on the parking lot itself. And I can offer language to that effect if the board would like to go in that direction. 1F, which is a request to reduce the parking stalls that are compact but only kind of partially compact along this section here, to reduce those actually further to be fully compact. So right now they are compact only slightly. Some of them have a length that is slightly more than our typical compact, which is 8 by 16. Some of the stalls are 17 feet. So looking to see that go to a typical 8 by 16, which would allow them to extend this landscape buffer for some of those stalls to make that a little bit wider. So that is what we are requesting on F. I will note that the greater than sign should actually be a less than, so just a typo on our end, apologies, relative to that 1F. And then under 1I, we had a discussion about this before relative to just fencing. The site has a lot of chain link fencing they're going to maintain. There's some fencing that goes into the right of way that needs to be relocated. We were hoping to have the fencing just be eliminated kind of south of where that relocation needs to occur, which is down here where my cursor is now, and instead having that fence just connect into the side of the building and allow for this area to open up. We recognized that the applicant had expressed concerns about mowing on both sides of the fence, so by not having a fence, that would eliminate that maintenance concern, also would allow them to plant trees and kind of activate that area a little bit more, which is in line with the design principles of the CCOD, and by having plantings and other things in there, it may deter anyone from wanting to go in there, and also just provide, again, an enhancement, maybe perennial plantings that have less maintenance requirements rather than a lawn, which is more inviting for folks to kind of go into. So that is I. And then we also understand that the applicant would prefer to strike condition N, which is outlined in the DTM comments. We'll clarify that there is not a requirement in the stretch code based on our understanding for any of the spaces to be equipped with EV charging. So just want to clarify that. And then 3, which is relative to an easement for the benefit of the city. There's an existing sidewalk along School Street that does encroach into the property today. It's a little bit hard to tell, but along this section here, as well as a portion of this section here, the sidewalk comes onto the applicant's property. So to minimize the applicant's liability, were something to happen, whenever we see that, we just recommend that they provide the city with an easement to help reduce that. I think if the applicant's really not amenable to that, that's to their own detriment, I would say, to not do that. And so if we could have that struck. And with that, just noting the waiver relative to the interior tree requirements for the board to consider. I will wrap my comments up there, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. Additional comments on this item from DPW? Do we have anybody from DPW?
Yes, I'm sorry. This is Leslie Rodriguez, no comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item tonight? Seeing nobody in the room, is there anyone online? And a reminder, it is, you need to raise your hand. You can do that by pressing *9 on your phone or the hand icon on Zoom. Okay, hearing none. Board members?
Well, I guess, I don't know if it would be helpful to hear from the applicant's thoughts on some of these comments before we weigh in. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think I'd be interested to hear on some of their concerns with staff's comments that were highlighted.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll start, Mr. Chair. So I'll go in order with respect to what's highlighted in your memo. So with respect to the additional extension of the walkway to Summer Street, this site, and my client has owned this property for a number of years. It's a medical office use. There are patients that come to and from the site. Unfortunately, there's been, his experience has also included trespassers onto the site. There's been homelessness, people meandering through the site, and it's really a safety and security issue. It is fenced along Summer Street with an pre-existing chain link fencing that runs along the entirety of Summer Street. We understand the purpose and intent of CCOD, pedestrian-friendly, accessibility, et cetera. This site is a little bit unique, again, in part because it's surrounded by 3 streets. I know that in the last meeting, there was some commentary or concern with respect to folks in Plumley Village, which is right across the street, community builders site, that if they may frequent this medical office building and have appointments. What that would mean is if there's not an access point along that Summer Street that's being requested by staff, that the folks at Plumley Village, for example, would have to simply walk down Summer Street, turn the corner onto Thomas in order to access the site. That's really, I think, not much of a burden, I would say, as a pedestrian to be able to do that. And again, I can only say that my client has firsthand experience with respect to people trespassing on the site, homelessness, as well as people bringing their dogs and defecating on the property, et cetera. So they're just really trying to maintain that security, in particular along Summer Street. The other sides of the property, including Thomas Street in particular, again, there's pretty well-enhanced landscaping that's being proposed. There already were certain trees, the vast majority of which are being retained, maybe all of them are being retained in terms of the trees. And so we feel as though on the 2 other streets, along School Street and Thomas Street, that those are open, inviting, pedestrian-friendly. The last iteration, the initial plan we had proposed along Thomas Street, for example, we had proposed that there would be extended fencing along the entirety, pretty much, of that southerly lot line. Now, my client has agreed to not have that extend. Instead, basically, the fencing that already exists as you come down Summer Street, turn that corner onto Thomas, that fencing will remain in place. The encroachment will be removed. So the fencing will be shifted back so it's on his property. However, all we're requesting on the chain link fencing there is one very small perpendicular segment of chain link fencing in order, again, to maintain the security and safety of the site and the patients that will be coming to and from the site. Otherwise, the Thomas Street lot line there will be completely open. So again, we feel as though there's really not a need. It will not add much in the way of benefit to have that Summer Street access walkway. I'll also just mention that the fencing is relatively new as well. My client would prefer not to limit the amount of modifications to an existing fencing that's already been installed there. So that's that first item. I can touch upon another item, or we can discuss that however you want to move forward, Mr. Chair.
I would say, why don't you go through your points on all of them, and then we can have discussion at that.
Sure. With respect to the tree planting in general, item 1D is the item highlighted under the special permit section. That item is worded a little bit more general in nature, and it's tied to items 1A and 1B as set forth in the parking plan section. With respect to item 1A, 3 new deciduous shade trees along the property's frontage on Summer Street and 1 shade tree along the northwest side of the parking area immediately west of the driveway access. So with respect to the Summer Street shade trees, I will just note that there are, as I said, around the perimeter of the entirety of the site, there are mature trees. The vast majority, if not all of them, are being retained. Particularly along Summer Street, there are, I think it's 3 large evergreen trees that exist, and so we feel as though those more than make up for what is, I believe, the requirement with respect to the 20 to 25 foot on center requirement for trees along that area. Obviously, along the building along Summer Street, the Summer Street frontage, we wouldn't be able to install trees along there. However, again, we feel as though the existing conditions with respect to the very mature, large pine trees that are located along Summer Street are adequate. That's with respect to item 1A. Item 1B, in terms of the 3 additional interior shade trees, Michelle, I think you had said that was a typo. Originally, it did say reflect 6. In speaking with Rose earlier today, we had said, well, maybe 3 might be a little more accommodating. Generally speaking, with respect to this item, I think this pertains to, so as Michelle had mentioned, the site, number one, we've seriously contracted the project. So we're not, that whole left side with respect to 100 Thomas Street is not going to be surface parking anymore. Hopefully it'll be a hotel or some other type of building that will be probably commercial in nature or maybe mixed-use residential. So now we've got a much smaller parking area in terms of square footage, and also more limited areas in which we could be able to provide interior trees. My client definitely does not want to provide trees within the middle aisles there. Is amenable, and obviously with respect to some of the new trees that are being provided around the perimeter. But we feel, again, based on the amount of trees that are being provided in those areas, that's more than adequate. We had, originally it said 6, and 3 might be feasible, but the problem is, where would those be located? So we have a little bit of a concern agreeing to 3, where there may be challenges with respect to where these actually could go and constitute interior trees as opposed to perimeter trees.
Can I just stop you here
Yes.
and make a general observation? So as we know, because you've been coming before this board for a number of years, and I've been on this board for a number of years, I'm a user of city sidewalks. That area, I understand your client, I believe you mentioned, also owns the parking lot across Thomas Street. It's another medical office use. It's another sea of black pavement, fenced in on the sides, very little pedestrian environment, very low utilization except maybe when the DCU is busy. I understand that they want to maintain as much parking as possible because they think that's important for their business plan. I think that's contrary to the CCOD, and the not wanting to do trees anywhere kind of position that your client is taking, I think is problematic here. Like the intent of the CCOD is walkability, but there's also a lot of urban heat island effect stuff we're talking about. There's a lot of pedestrian safety stuff. Appreciate that you've made some changes to the plan in response to our comments, but Frank, I'm just telling you, based on the way this discussion is going, I'm not going to be able to support this without a little bit more of an effort to enhance the quality of the site. This is an important parcel downtown. It's in our, as reflected by the fact that it's in our commercial corridor overlay district. And yep, I get all the safety concerns. I also own property downtown. I'm of the belief that better design, more open design, better sight lines is a much better solution than fencing this off and just having a sea of black pavement.
So I'll say one thing, Mr. Chair. You said that there are no trees being offered. There are trees that are being offered. There are also trees that are, they're mature trees on the site that already pre-exist.
I do understand that. This was on my running route for a number of years. That is a very sunny, unshaded portion of pavement right there.
I'm sorry, it's a what?
There is not a lot of shade, and there's not a lot of trees in that area. Like there are some trees, sure, but I don't think that's the existing condition. It's certainly not meeting the intent of the ordinance. It would have been approved under a different planning board, under a different master plan for the city. We are trying to move in a direction that 25 years from now is going to look a little bit more trees. And I think in order to do that, we have to stay consistent here. So like what's on the site doesn't kind of count in my mind. Like interior trees to parking lots in particular have a huge impact on urban heat island, and just taking the position that, hey, we've got to preserve all these parking spaces and we absolutely cannot add any interior trees. I'm like, that's kind of, that is a big sea of parking right there. I think you guys need to, frankly, put some interior trees in that parking lot.
Well, we can have that discussion. Part of my main point was for us to, if we're going to agree to a X number of interior trees, I think we'd want to know where we're talking about having them. We had some discussion with Rose earlier today for some areas where it might be possible. Along the shared property line, for example, that may not be possible. So I'm not sure whether we want to agree to having them installed there. Matt Bombachi, as I said, is here. He can perhaps provide some, shed some light with respect to potential areas where some of these interior trees can be provided. Matt, do you want to weigh in on?
Good evening. For the record, Matt Bombachi with Bowler Engineering. As Josh mentioned, we spoke with Rose earlier today, and Michelle's going to beat me to it. She's better at drawing from over there. As currently constituted, it's very tight along the western property boundary. That proposed limited pavement matches the existing limited pavement over there, so there's only 3 feet of buffer. The areas we discussed are at the northeast or the top right of the plan. There's 9 parking spaces along that side where trees can be planted and shade the parking area, as well as perhaps that top left corner that Michelle noted in front of the building and along the right side of the driveway there, coming into the entrance, maybe a columnar tree that doesn't block the view of the building but provides some screening and shading, but is currently constituted, not likely room to provide 6 as shown, but certainly some opportunity to provide a few if the board was amenable.
We're always amenable to more trees, but could you maybe shed some light on why can't we cut the pavement and have some interior trees in the main, the interior parking
Like,
spaces?
yeah, sure. I think it's just a matter of wanting to keep the same number of spaces on the site as exists today and kind of mimic the existing striping and layout.
Okay, and again, frequently walk by this building, parking lot's never full. Does the developer have why is that the right number of parking spaces?
I'm sure, yeah, I think they're just looking to keep the number that they have existing today to maintain their existing use of the site.
Right, they're looking to do that, I'm looking to add trees, and here we are.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I missed that last comment.
I think we need to add trees in order to comply with the ordinance. There are minimum requirements, you're asking us to waive them. I wouldn't support waiving them because I think that the ordinance is well-founded and it's specifically kind of designed to address sites like this. So I'm not in support of waiving them. I understand that's the conflict. Like, ownership would like to keep the number of parking spaces they have. My question is, why? Why that specific number? But maybe more to the point, I just think you have to add trees in order for me to support this.
So, Mr. Chair, with respect to the need, we had a pretty robust discussion with respect to the need when we were talking about having 130 parking spaces at this site. We understood the feedback and its sort of hesitation of the board with respect to that many spaces in the CCOD, which I completely understand. And so we really did a wholesale change with respect to basically contracting it and trying to maintain, restripe what's there, almost to the point where parking plan review wouldn't even be required, but for pretty much the access change that's happening along Thomas Street. In terms of the need, and I don't question you jogging, this being you're jogging around and seeing the underutilization of this parking lot and maybe perhaps the medical space next door. This building is not fully occupied. That's what my client is trying to do, desperately trying to do within this medical office building, which has had various challenges that a lot of real estate developers face. They've got a really great tenant. They need the parking. Again, we went from 130 to back to 90, basically, 91 spaces, and they need the space. Even when SOS occupies this building, it's still not going to be fully occupied. So there's that to consider. With respect to what we were requesting previously with the 130, fortunately, because my client does own the adjoining medical office property that does have parking, that does have some utilization, they'll be able to utilize, if they need to, overflow into that adjoining office, that property and utilize its parking. But there's definitely a need with respect to the parking, which is in large part why they really do want to maintain what is there now today.
I understand that's what they want.
And I'm not saying we can't say flat out no to trees. I'm really trying to.
I do understand that. And I'm just saying, in order for me to support this, and I hear your client's argument, that we want to maintain parking spaces, we're worried there's not going to be enough parking spaces, we're not going to be able to lease. That's the argument of every commercial landlord in every downtown business center ever. And there's a lot of research behind that just not necessarily being true. And common sense tells me it's not true, because I look at where Mezcal is, that parking lot's never full. I look at your client's other parking lot, never full. I look at this parking lot, never full. Next to a parking garage that the city owns, also never full. There is so much parking in that area. Oh, by the way, St. Vincent's, another block up the street, with a giant parking garage. Like, we have so many, we probably have 5 parking spaces for every car that needs to park there. I made up that number, but there's a huge surplus of parking in that area. And what I think specifically, in order, if I was the developer here, what I would say is, hey, let's sacrifice 4 parking spaces in that center area, and let's put some trees there, because that will get the planning board to stop complaining about this and accomplish what we're looking to accomplish. That, I think, is the easy solution.
Inside, interior of the parking lot.
So you're suggesting in that middle aisle?
Yeah, in the end caps that Michelle just highlighted and granted yellow, which is a little difficult to see, I think those are the classic points where you would put shade trees.
Okay. Can I, Mr. Chair, can we, I'm trying to communicate with my client as we're talking. Can we, the points taken, can we move on to some other highlighted items just so we can keep this moving, and obviously we'll come
Sure.
back to this one. So I think the next item pertains, do you want to talk about 1F?
The landscape buffer spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. This is in reference to the spaces at the northwest of the parking area. What the current plan does, again, is restripe and maintain the existing curb line along that property line. That curb line has a 3-foot landscape buffer. For a portion of it, maybe half those spaces along there, and as it gets close to where the arrow is right now, around a 1.5 foot buffer to existing property line. I think what the staff's comment was, it was reduce the spaces which we match the existing striping, which is around 17.4 foot wide, long spaces, to reduce that to 16 feet to provide the 3-foot landscape buffer. I know the applicant's preference would be to maintain the existing limit of pavement, just to provide the extra length for spaces to accommodate a wider range of vehicles, but that's the nature of the comment.
Understood. We can certainly discuss that at the end, or if board members want to jump in at any point, but if you want to also discuss chain link fence, EV spaces, and the easement related to the sidewalk, just before we kind of get to board discussion.
With respect to the chain link fence, yeah, this is similar to the discussion we had with respect to having another access point along a pedestrian access point along Summer Street, which again is mainly concerned with respect to safety and security. So currently today, it's an existing fence that, again, turns that corner around that intersection of Summer Street and Thomas Street. He'd like to maintain that, and then just provide a small segment that runs perpendicular up against the building. With respect to the EV, again, I'm going to revert to the existing condition. The Stretch Energy Code requires 10% of conduit run if there are parking spaces that are being modified. But in this case, again, only 13 spaces are being modified. So we would request that there not be EV here. To the extent that the board insists on some level, then we would prefer that they be conduit run as opposed to installed at the time of construction. Lastly, with respect to the easement, my client might be amenable to granting an easement with respect to that sidewalk, but he'd like to think about that and perhaps do that later outside of this application.
Okay, understood. Why don't we have some board discussion?
Sure, I guess I can start. Yeah, overall, I would agree that the changes that we're seeing this time around, the reduction in the overall parking lot size is a good thing, a benefit for this, I think, for the site and certainly for the downtown area. Generally, I think I would say I'm in agreement with the chairman's comments. We're really talking about 8 total trees on 8 or 9 total trees on a pretty large site. I think staff's highlighted a few opportunity locations here, and if the applicant, I know you're discussing with him now, is amenable to these additional trees, I would agree. I don't really think it's going to be, I should think it'll be a net positive to the site overall. Keep the site more in line with the CCOD. Kind of similar comments with respect to the pedestrian access and the fencing. I think those comments from staff are grounded in pretty solid reason and backing from the CCOD. I don't know that the safety and security of removing that small bit of fence where there's just a bit of grass behind it is going to be detrimental to the safety of that building.
There's 4 trees right there.
So I would prefer to keep most of staff comments in as they are. I think we could be a little, we could find somewhere in the middle between the comment on the EV spaces. Certainly I'd like to see some, at least EV ready, even a couple, 1 or 2 EV online operational, but would be interested to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Mr. King?
I'm generally aligned with the additional trees kind of in the center islands for the parking lot. And then similar to Board Member McCormick, I'd prefer some EV ready spaces as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Dolera?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur. I think that the staff comments are reasonable asks, and they would result in a better plan, not just for this site, but for the overall area. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dolera. Mr. Toomey, I know you can't vote on this, but you've had to sit and listen to us. Would you like to offer any comments? Okay. So the site connection to Summer Street and the chain link fence, I think are the 2 things that maybe there's a little bit of discussion left on the board. Because I think we're all universally in support of, hey, you've at least got to meet stretch code, and it really would be good if you put an EV charger or 2 in. It's going to improve your site, and it's not, a big expense. I would be okay just saying EV ready and saying to the applicant that, particularly if they were willing to kind of meet us halfway on the trees. I'm curious from staff's perspective whether they feel the sidewalk or the chain link fence is a more impactful, which of those 2 would be a more impactful change to this plan in terms of meeting the intent of the CCOD?
Through the chair, I would say the sidewalk would be more impactful. I don't know if one or the other, the applicant would be more amenable to providing, because I think the pedestrian connection is the specific reason that the fence is there. So opening the pedestrian connection may have more detriment in their mind, whereas sort of what we're suggesting with the alterations, let me switch to a different marker here. We were just suggesting kind of where they need to move the fence already, just as they do that, just reinstall in a way that kind of connects to the building, which allows this whole area between the building and the street to feel more like a front plaza area, and they could landscape it with other things that, again, deter the activity that I think they're trying to prevent with the chain link fence, because right now it's just essentially what looks like a lawn, which is a great place for your dog to do its business, right? It's hard to control that kind of activity, so by having that function differently, that could prevent that activity as well. So anyhow, I don't think either of those are particularly, I think from staff's perspective, the trees are critically important, and that both of those items, if the board's not amenable to those, it's not the hill we'll die on, if you will. But I think those are just enhancements to the site overall as it relates to the intent of the commercial corridor overlay district. But keeping in mind the scale of what's in front of you in terms of the improvements, I think we could live without both of those if necessary.
Understood. Josh, what I would,
I see Phil, yep. Star 9 would raise your hand, Phil, if you're looking to raise your hand.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to,
Understood.
Phil Schlockman's trying to join
Is this the applicant or?
the applicant, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm just requesting he unmute now. I don't know if he's had any luck with that. Are you there, Phil? Looks like you got unmuted. Beautiful.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
We can.
we got you, Phil.
Yes, planning board members, my name is Phil Schlockman, and I'm the principal with my son of the 120 Thomas Street property. I apologize for not being present. I intended to be present for the hearing this evening, but a family member had surgery today, and I'm unable to be there. I also apologize because I'm an old guy and I'm not overly comfortable on Zoom. I much more prefer to speak face-to-face and in public. I'd like to address some of the issues that have been discussed. First of all, I have firsthand intimate knowledge of this property as well as property across the street, which I've owned since the early 1980s. So for 40 years, and my office has been on the corner there of Summer and Central Street or MLK Boulevard for close to that period of time. The property across the street is a little different than this property. The property across the street, in addition to having a medical office building, it has a long-standing, pre-existing commercial parking lot. So we do have extra parking there. And as an example of the issue of whether 120 Thomas Street is sufficiently parked, for over a decade, we leased roughly 36 parking spaces to the VNA because they were grossly underparked and couldn't support enough parking for their staff at the facility. At present, we have 3 small leases at 120 Thomas Street. With the addition of the SOS lease, we will still be substantially below capacity of leasing this property. It will include the first floor being leased and a very small tenant up on the 3rd floor. Initially, when the 120 Thomas Street was developed in the 1980s, my understanding was that there were 112 parking spaces. Now, one of the things that we've done with this project is we've listened to what the planning board has said and what planning board staff has said, and we've withdrawn our request to increase the number of parking spaces, and we are adjusting the parking lot line to increase the frontage on 100 Thomas Street to make that a developable lot. We previously, a number of years ago, acquired the old D.H. Adams Plumbing Supply business because it was a blight on the community and the buildings were riddled with asbestos. The entire facade of both buildings were asbestos-containing material. We made a huge investment in demolishing it to improve the neighborhood. And with this shift in the lot line based on recommendations from the planning board and staff, that lot will now be developable as a standalone commercial venture, possibly and likely a hotel. Some of the issues with regard to trees and parking and access, as an example, when we first acquired the VNA building, weekly and monthly for at least the first year we owned the property, we had to chase drunks off the property on Summer Street. There's a staircase that goes down to the basement that has a small shed awning at the bottom. We had people living in there, and daily we had to have maintenance staff go over, chase them out. We had people walking their dogs daily, defecating on the lawn. If you want a lawn in that area, it needs to be fenced. It cannot be open because there won't be any grass left. In terms of people crossing the street, if there are patients and visitors from Plumley Village, they'll have to go to the corner of the street anyway because there's no crosswalk opposite where that loading space is. The crosswalk is at the corner of Thomas and Summer Street. So with respect to the need for the parking, frankly, we need every single one of those parking spaces. We're very positive about landscaping and trees. The trees that exist on the 120 Thomas Street presently were in dire need of repair, pruning, and nurturing with chemicals and fertilizers, which we have done for the last 3-4 years since we acquired the property. And so that's why they look as good as they do now. Before we acquired the property, they were in disrepair. Half of them were dead. And so we're willing to supplement both on the perimeter and in the interior, but we don't want to create islands within the parking field. In my experience, and I've been in both the medical office building and other office buildings and other types of buildings, as well as commercial parking, interior islands are a problem for operating parking lots. They create problems with leaves, with slip and falls in the fall and the winter time. I think that as an example of an attractive area with landscaping, anybody who goes along MLK Boulevard in front of our 100 MLK medical office building would be very impressed with the level of, in the condition of the trees that we have there, as well as the well-flowered landscaping beds. Our site was a difficult site across the street because in addition to having a building, it had a commercial parking lot, and it was also the subject of takings for 5 years when the Medical City project was built. Every single facade of our street frontage was modified by takings, widening of streets, changing sidewalks, changing the railroad bridge, which was an at-grade crossing, to a bridge with a boat section that floods. We had issues that took us 10 years to get over. And it's attractive now because we've maintained it well, we've improved it, we've made investments, and we spend a lot of time and effort, as well as budget, to keep it looking as nice as any property in the city. As a matter of fact, the island in the center of MLK Boulevard has hedges that are maintained by us. And we have maintained it ever since they were planted when the Medical City project was built, and the city didn't have a budget to maintain it. So I think we've demonstrated our goodwill and our interest in having an attractive property, but it needs to be met with the need to be safe, inviting, and operationally efficient. In an effort to meet you halfway, I would be willing to say that we will put in 4 shade trees somewhere within the parking lot that is agreeable to staff of the planning board. I just don't want to commit to them right here and now. If we could have a field trip with staff and pick out 4 spots for 4 nice trees, I'd be more than amenable to that if that would be agreeable to the board.
Okay, thank you for your comments, sir. Ms. Smith, would you care to respond?
Through the chair, so it sounds like the applicant's amenable to providing the trees. I'm going to suggest the ones that I've marked up and read, and I apologize, I'm not an expert Zoom drawer, so pardon my childish markups here, but attempting to have some clarity on what we're all collectively referring to for folks who are participating. So it's fine for the locations to be selected at a later date, as long as the board's amenable to that. We would recommend, if that is what the applicant's agreeable to just modify 1B to, instead of all of the mumbo jumbo that's there, just essentially replace that with reflect 8 interior shade trees. And then that will be the 4 that they are suggesting that they're committing to interior to the parking lot, the 2 that are already being provided, which brings us to 6, and the 2 that are in locations that staff had already kind of identified with the applicant team earlier today. And then the applicant would not need the waiver. So I think the discussion on interior trees could be resolved. And then I think we heard consensus from the board that the board would like 1A to be met. So I think you're on to discussing pedestrian connections, chain link fencing, compact spaces. And what I heard from the EV discussion was that you would like to see 2 spaces conduit run. Correct me if that is different, but I believe that also breaks down to 10% of the 13 that they're modifying, so that should be consistent with what the requirement is in the stretch code, although I'm not going to be the most expert in exactly what that requires, since it's a building requirement, but.
I actually think it would be 3 spaces in the stretch code, because 2.6 rounds up.
But just through the chair, I can tell you that my client is amenable to providing 3 conduit run spaces.
Okay, for me, that would meet the intent of the EV. Is there anyone on the board who would object to that? Okay, hearing none from my colleagues, I think we can be okay with that. So I think it's pedestrian connectivity and fencing are the remaining items. And anybody have any comments on this?
I mean, I think staff's comment of removing the section of fencing along the corner of Summer and, is that Thomas on the bottom?
Yeah. Thomas.
I think that's pretty reasonable, especially it still provides the same amount of security. It just opens up that site a little bit more to the downtown area. I think that's a pretty reasonable condition from staff. I would prefer to see that remain. I think the commentary we've heard from the applicant and the representatives here, I could be okay walking away from the sidewalk.
Mr. King, Mr. Delera, any comments from you guys?
No additional comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I understand the need for some flexibility. My preference would still be to adhere to what staff had recommended. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delera. I will point out for my colleagues, so in order for this to pass tonight, we need all 4 voting members to vote yes, because there's a special permit element of this. So, Mr. Delera, what I'm hearing from Mr. McCormick, Mr. King, and what I'm inclined to support is that the applicant's willingness to meet us on the trees, the EV spaces, and a small removal of the chain link fence in the plan southeast area would satisfy, in our opinion, the intent of the special permit and the parking plan. Would you vote differently?
No, I would not vote differently. I still think that what staff is recommending is a reasonable ask. But again, I do recognize the need for flexibility, and this would be enough to earn my vote as a yes.
Okay, so Attorney Smith, I think you understand where the board is. And I think what we're saying is maybe it's worth running through. So condition 1A, the trees along Summer Street would stay. Condition B would reflect just 8 total trees. It might not even need to be in there because that would just comply with the ordinance, but the intent would be,
I'm sorry, condition 1A or 1B?
Ms. Smith, do you want to
Yeah,
make sure
through
that I
the
don't
chair.
mess up?
So keep 1A, 1B is revised to just say 8 interior shade trees, which includes the 2 that you've already planted, so that brings us down to 6. The 4 interior that we were discussing, and then 2 additional, which likely can be accommodated in the landscape buffers in any of the places that I put green trees previously. But that would be additive, so A and B. I can redraw where the A trees are and where I think the B trees will likely be. And just, we're talking about the 1A under parking plan too, just to clarify, not under the special permit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if we could, Michelle, did you
Would you like me to draw?
move those?
I can
red-
draw again. I will draw again.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I just want to make sure my client understands. He proposed this, but I just want to make sure my client understands potentially where these 4 additional interior parking, interior trees may be located. So through the chair, Phil, Michelle is redrawing potential locations where some interior trees might be located.
Yeah, and to
Again,
be-
subject to discussion, but,
Subject to discussion.
and they could be potentially located elsewhere, but this is,
I think that those are reasonable suggestions, and I would like the opportunity to take a look at it. If, for example, the 2 on the northerly side, there is room to put an island at the end of that parking row so that we don't lose 2 spaces. There could be an island right where those 2 red X's are at the end of the parking row so that the objective of the 2 trees is met without losing 2 parking spaces.
Through the
That
chair.
would be preferred.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll just comment that the DTM, one of their comments was about a turning analysis from auto turn. So I would just caution that in an island that's outside of where those spaces are, that may reduce apparatus movement such that it's not feasible for a fire truck or other delivery vehicles that the site may need to accommodate. So that would just be something I would caution. While it does look like, that area has ample room, I think it's only still about 24 feet or so wide, which may minimize that. So typically the fire truck, just for a straight shot, needs at least 18 feet for kind of a clearance. So just as
And that's
long
why
as the applicant understands that.
I do understand that, and I appreciate the comment, and that's why I would appreciate if we could take a site walk and look at it and pick out 4 good spots that would accomplish both objectives. And whatever it would be subject to your approval with what we suggest or that you suggest that works for everybody.
I think
Okay.
the board is amenable to that. So that's A and B. Let's just make sure we get them all. So the compact spaces, there was not a lot of input from the board on this. You guys are requesting to keep as is. Staff is requesting to modify them to be 8 by 16 to increase landscape buffer. I think this is a pretty reasonable ask personally. I get what your client is saying about, hey, sometimes larger vehicles park in compact spaces. We're asking for a landscape buffer, not, a stone wall or something that would prevent that. The chain link fencing, so I think condition 1I is staying as is.
Through the chair, so Michelle's going to be drawing again. So through the chair, Phil, if you could just watch her magic marker here outlining, just so it's clear, with respect to condition 1I and the chain link fence.
I very much understand what that represents, and frankly, I don't agree with it. It would make that corner a cut-through. It would be a place for dog walkers. It would not permit us to maintain that properly so that it's visually and aesthetically pleasing. It would be a path that would be used, and it wouldn't have the intended effect of an attractive landscaping area. I know the area well. Even at, I'll give you an example, at the very corner of MLK and Summer, there's an electrical box and a light standard, and there's a space of 2 feet wide between a row of bushes and the electric utility box. Even though there's hedges there, people continually cut through that spot, no matter what we do, no matter how big the hedges get, and they don't want to walk on the sidewalk. And this is a similar location. It's going to be used as a cut-through. We would like, it's a very prominent location, and we'd like to have attractive landscaping there. There's a flagpole there. We'd like to have flowers there. And if it's not fenced, it's just not going to be able to be maintained.
Through the chair, just to, what I understand the board's discussion was that the board would like to see that. So I've marked up and read the area. I think that would result in the elimination of fencing and then a blue line that runs perpendicular to Summer Street, essentially connecting where the fence would end to the side of the building, somewhere in that general vicinity. And that area between the building and the street would still be available for the lovely landscaping it sounds like the applicant is intending. It just wouldn't be fenced. So they might select different shrubs or other types of material for plantings that would go in that area that are either more tolerant of users who might be adjacent on the sidewalk, or they have a variety of areas that are mulched and planted today, so kind of continuing something along those lines where it's not a lawn area, instead a different type of planting. So I think based on what the applicant's describing in terms of their desires for landscaping, hopefully that would align and be the experience that happens there. Certainly, if the applicant wanted to extend hardscaping onto the property, that would be acceptable as well. That's consistent with the principles of CCOD. So if they wanted to add hardscaping so that the sidewalk was wider in that location, if they were concerned about cut-throughs, that would be fine, in addition to plantings. Just to clarify in terms of what that would be.
If we could we make this similar, a condition similar to the 4 interior trees that we will walk the site together, come up with a plan that is agreeable to staff and the planning board, and we will come to some consensus on this that tries to achieve both objectives.
I defer to staff as to whether or not that's feasible.
Through the chair, I think that one's going to be a little tricky. I would need more direction from the board on what would be acceptable. I think an alternative the board could consider, partially fencing creates a physical constraint and barrier that kind of keeps people out. The other part of it is the type of and material of fencing. Typically, we try to steer away from chain link. We understand there's existing chain link. An alternative could be to consider a different type of more decorative fencing as an alternative that's a little bit more welcoming in its feel. But again, defer to the board. I think we would be amenable to having the fence. Now I'm drawing in the same color. Let me adjust. Going back to the blue pen here. probably could be amenable to seeing the fence terminate here in line with the front elevation, which would keep that entire area there, basically from the building facade to the intersection, open for planting or hardscaping at the applicant's.
And I'm suggesting that we're amenable to some compromise that meets your approval. We want a little bit of time to come up with some ideas, discuss it with our landscaping professionals, and it'll be subject to your approval, so if you don't like it, it doesn't fly.
Staff would be fine with the board putting parameters on something to that effect so that we have enough direction to test whether that meets the intent of what the board is requesting or not, but we need some parameters to work with and not just kind of to our discretion, because it's too open to interpretation.
Yeah, I agree. So how about we say that, I don't know if I can quite get to the legal language of the condition, but the parameter would be, the resulting area would be, meet the intent of a more open environment, friendly to folks walking by. I don't know if I can get there, Michelle.
I'm struggling myself. This is one where I would typically say this would be good to just have the team review and adjust the design and come back at a future meeting. If there's reservations in terms of the design, I will be happy to try to keep thinking on that. But I think we're sort of running out of time with the other conditions to discuss. If the applicant's counsel has a specific suggestion, I think staff would be open to considering what that language would look like. But I think we do need to put some boundaries on it, so.
Through the chair, sorry, Phil?
Yeah, I was just saying that from a time frame, we would like to come to a conclusion on this evening so that we can move forward with the project. The tenant space is going to be completed next month, and we would like to start the improvements to the landscaping in the parking lot to comply with the finish of the interior of the tenant space. So if we could come to some kind of agreement on that, whatever language, Josh, you could suggest that would satisfy the board and staff on that item.
Through the,
Maybe, what if we use the language, we'll remove the fencing and satisfy it in keeping with the intent of the CCOD?
I'm sorry, Phil, you're through the chair. You just said, I think, you would remove the fencing?
If, as an alternative, we would come up with a landscape plan for that corner that would be satisfactory to the board and staff, or just remove the fencing. If they don't approve what we come up with, we'll just remove the fencing. In line with that blue line that's suggested there.
Okay. You want to suggest that?
Through the chair, if I sense that the applicant's team may benefit from just a quick conversation together. So perhaps we can just hold this item, keep going to the next item on the agenda, and then pick that back up once we've concluded the next item, and maybe the project team has had the opportunity to come up with a agreeable solution that we can then condition this evening.
Can I give you 5 minutes? Can we take a 5-minute recess? Is that enough
That
time?
works as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yep, that works for us.
We'll come back at 7 on the dot, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, folks, we're back.
Can we just confirm we have our virtual board members both online? If they could just tell us that they are back and we are able to hear you, Anthony and Brandon.
I'm here.
I am here. Thank you.
Okay, I see Attorney Smith scribbling furiously, which I'm sure means he's drafting as we speak.
Think about that one, and I'm gonna. Can I see that memo? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we discuss 1F pertaining to the chain link fencing on the southerly part of the lot, we did want to briefly go back to 1F pertaining to the compact spaces. My understanding is that the real intent and purpose with respect to this item is that the desire of the staff and perhaps the board is that there be a 3-foot buffer provided along that lot line, which my client is willing and amenable to provide. So if we provided that as a condition, that a 3-foot buffer be provided along that westerly lot line, would that be adequate?
I think that would address my concerns. Mr. McCormick, you were about to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be fine as long as everything else can still fit.
Yep, through the chair, that would just be the concern that staff would have, would be that some of those spaces would be smaller than regular compact stall, but if the applicant's engineer is confident that they're able to accommodate that, that is the same intent. We're trying to preserve that 3 feet, that way, in the future, if the adjacent site develops that way, then there's 6 feet, which allows for enough room for vegetation to actually thrive, whereas if we get like a foot, we're gonna get crabgrass, right, that's gonna grow there, so.
Okay, yeah, I think we're amenable to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And moving on with respect to item 1I, I've provided Michelle with some potential language, which I'm sure she's mulling over. But essentially, it provides options with respect to the condition as written with respect to the elimination of the chain link fencing, or as written, and I think Michelle is probably redlining my language as we speak.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is proposing to change the condition to state what it says and then say or, and they are proposing to say provide landscape plantings as approved by staff. Staff would recommend, if the board wants to provide for an or option, that you consider, and I would say this is less of what the board discussed, but for consideration, because we've been discussing for some time, or provide landscaping and or hardscaping and decorative fencing that is not of a chain link variety, consistent with the intent of the CCOD in the location south of the southern building plane. I will say that you may still get a fence right up on the sidewalk with that. So.
So through the chair, Michelle, I think what you're saying is essentially either eliminate the fence and reconfigure it as written under 1I, or provide some type of landscape plantings in that corner, in that intersection, along with some type of more decorative style fencing. Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct, that instead of chain link, it would be a decorative aluminum or some other more ornate fencing that's more consistent with the intent of the CCOD rather than a chain link.
So
And that's for the board to discuss, because again, the fence is still kind of that constraint, physical constraint, but a fence that's more decorative is a bit more inviting, whereas a chain link fence is sort of stay out of here. But both obviously provide a functional form to deter people.
Through the chair, I'm going to defer to my client. Phil, do you understand that proposed condition that Michelle just read off?
And I would just add to that, that we wouldn't want that fence to be more than 4 feet in height. And I think Phil might be muted again, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute Phil. It's *9 to raise, oh, we got ya.
That's agreeable.
Excellent,
So
thank
it's
you.
up to the board.
All smiling here, Phil. Thank you.
Okay, so when we make the motion, we're going to go with language as articulated by Ms. Smith. Is that? All right. Josh, just to confirm, I think we're agreeable on EV spaces. Ms. Smith, this is always a question for you. I think because stretch code is going to, well, actually, maybe it doesn't. So we'll just say provide 3 EV-ready spaces for condition 1N.
I think that's safer. I don't know enough about the stretch code in this context to tell you
Yeah.
whether or not they would be required.
Okay. And then the easement for the benefit of the city of Worcester, existing sidewalk. I'm of the opinion that this should get done, but I don't think it needs to be part of this. Does anybody
It's fine.
object?
And through the chair, just to clarify too, on the special permit conditions, I heard the board say strike 1A but leave 1D. Is that correct?
Yes, because I think the 8 trees does meet the requirement of 1D.
Yep. So,
Okay.
are
Just
we
looking-
good? Do we need to review them again?
Yeah, I was,
Project team, good? Okay, I will give you your notes back, yes.
just confirming, are we good on this? Or are you guys reviewing?
We are good, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for hanging in. Let's make a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the special permit and the parking plan for 100 and 120 Thomas Street, subject to staff recommended conditions of approval on pages 2 through 5 of the staff memo, with the following amendments: striking 1A of the special permit, amending 1B, F, I, and N as articulated by Ms. Smith, and striking 3.
Second.
On the motion, Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Delera,
Yes.
Mr. McCormick.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 4-0.
And through the chair, that did include the close of the public hearing as well in that motion?
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, and we do not need a waiver then with respect to, okay.
Right. Okay. Where are we? So, continuing
Thank you.
on with our regular agenda. Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll go to item number 2, which is 78 Harrington Way. This is a continuation of a public hearing for a special permit related to dimensional requirements in an ADU.
Good evening. My name is Jay Gallant. I'm the architect for the project. This is Trish DeMack, the property owner. And if you recall from our last meeting, we basically we took the staff recommendations and pretty much went through and are doing everything that was recommended. So moving the proposed building forward towards Harrington Way to the end of the existing driveway, and slightly closer to the side property line, so, but we're still further away than the 5 feet that would be required for an accessory building. And the height of the building is the same as we originally proposed. The square footage of the ADU is the same as we originally proposed. And the building, because, and this is what my concern we were talking about before, but it still works pretty well. We figured it out. It'll be slightly closer to the existing house. Could we go to a picture of the house from the street? I think there's one in the package. maybe not. It's okay. It's okay. I guess back to the architectural, so essentially, at the top left elevation, the existing house will be 7 feet from the left side of the proposed building, but it'll only be a portion that at the lower level that protrudes slightly and provides entrance to the lower level apartment. The main part of the house will be about 10 feet, a little over 10 feet away from the edge of the new building. So it works pretty well. We can basically leave the existing driveway in its current location without changing it, and so there'd be no new pavement. And leave the landscaping, oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so the landscaping next to the driveway that you see there will remain, and really all we would need is a couple of steps up from the new building, the entrance to the new building up to the walkway, which will basically remain in place as well. And I believe we can work with all the conditions or the recommendations listed, including the new trees and the, what else was there? Basically the new trees, right? Yeah. And that's about it. I mean, I think it feels like the new, the recommendations led to a better design. We can avoid the sprinkler system, which would be needed if we were more than 50 feet, will be 43 feet. So it seems like it works really well.
That's terrific. Recall that discussion. It was only last meeting. Ms. Smith, anything you want to add?
I don't think we really have anything to add here, but just a reminder in terms of the board's purview, this is a request for a special permit to modify relative to size. So the applicant's seeking to have a 1,036 square foot ADU, so 900 square feet is the by right. So this is 136 feet larger, and you'll recall that just on the ground floor here, it's mostly garage, but there is a small laundry room that you can see in the back here, which is really what's kind of throwing this over the 900 square foot threshold.
Yeah, okay. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one in the room, a reminder, it's *9 to raise your hand or the little red hand. Okay. Board members, I think we discussed this last time, and seems like it's been a positive change. Anyone have any additional discussion?
Appreciate the changes. Happy to support it.
Mr. King, Mr. Dolera?
Support it. Thank you.
Likewise, and I appreciate the counselor recognizing the improvements that emanated from this process.
Yeah, Mr. Toomey?
No comments.
Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the special permit for an ADU for 78 Harrington. I will motion to close public hearing.
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Dolera?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey? I vote yes as well. Hearing's closed.
I will make a motion to approve the special permit for an ADU for 78 Harrington Way, subject to staff recommended conditions on page 3 of the staff memo.
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Dolera?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. Next on the agenda is item number 8, 4A Stebbins Street will be a public hearing for a special permit related to an ADU, relief from dimensional requirements. Do we have somebody representing the applicant?
And through the chair, we have someone online. Go ahead and unmute, Raphael.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Rafael Hernandez from Acropolis Design. I'm representing the owner, Karina Cordero. We are seeking approval to exceed the gross floor area of an ADU. The property is a 3-family building constructed in 2021, and the proposed ADU will be in the finished basement that's currently there. The space is being utilized as a finished storage and recreational area. The reason for the larger square footage is that much of the room is already finished, and with existing walls in place, and the modifications will add the bedroom walls, the kitchen, and enclose the area of the mechanicals. The building already has a sprinkler system. All the work will be interior except for the egress, window, and well. We anticipate that the construction will not severely impact the existing neighbors since it has its own entrance. The work will be completed by the experienced contractor who built the building in 2021. If approved, this project will contribute to addressing the housing needs in the area thanks to the new ADU regulation. Thank you for your time. I will answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. That's a great summary. Additional comments from anyone on city staff?
Through the chair, this is Olivia Houle in the Planning Division. So before you have an application for a special permit to exceed maximum gross floor area requirements for an ADU. The property currently has a 3-family dwelling on it. Each of the existing units have 3 bedrooms. The applicant is seeking to do an internal conversion for the ADU of the basement, which will result in a total of 1,069 square feet. The existing units are approximately 1,500 square feet. Although they have the same footprint, there is some mechanicals in the basement that's resulting in a smaller basement unit for the ADU, but still exceeds the maximum 900 square feet requirement. This property is in an RL7 district, and it's also identified as a managed growth area per the Now Next plan. Their by right options would be to construct an external ADU that would be appropriately sited in less than 900 square feet. But the applicant here is just seeking to do an internal conversion of the ADU. The only condition that we have for this is to add 1 new tree on the property, mostly because when this building was constructed, there weren't any trees added at all. So we're just looking to get a tree on the property today.
And through the chair, just to clarify too, as Ms. Houle stated, they have the option of doing the external unit by right, but they could also do an addition to construct an ADU attached to the building, or internally 900 square feet is just that threshold that we talked about, kind of that arbitrary cutoff. So here's the 3-decker, right? And we talked about how those floor plates are actually often larger than 900 square feet. So that's what you're seeing here is the request just to exceed that by right standard. So just seeking a larger footprint.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Any comments from DPW?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
I have no concerns. I think it's, given that it's an interior unit that is basically matching the existing floor plan of the other units in the building, minus some mechanical areas and egresses, it seems like minimal impact, and I'd be willing to support it.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Mr. King?
No concerns on this. That makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Delera?
My sentiment as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Toomey?
Yeah, I agree. It's all within the same footprint.
Yeah, this is, seems like consistent with what the ordinance intends, so happy to support this.
With that, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Hearing is closed.
And I would make a motion to approve the special permit ADU for 4A Stebbins Street, subject to staff recommended conditions on page 3 of the staff memo.
Through the chair, I do see another hand raised here actually online. Are we able to take public comment? I believe.
We close the hearing.
Okay. I would recommend that you just vote to reopen it so that we can hear this comment, because we do have someone with their hand raised.
Okay. Let's confirm they want to speak.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Bob. So Bob, if you were looking to speak on this item, if you could unmute yourself now, you should be able to do that. Just gonna, there we go.
Okay.
Nope.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Do you want to speak on Stebbins Street?
I do.
Okay, just give us 1 second. We needed to confirm first, but we need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Motion.
So moved. Second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, hearing's reopened. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, my name is Bob Johnson. I'm the chairman of the trustees of the Quinsigamond United Methodist Church, which is directly across the street from this property. And we have concerns about with the additional dwellings on that site and no additional parking being addressed for that site. And we currently face a problem with tenants from that site to begin with, in that frequently they overflow their parking that they currently have and are parking directly in front of the church, especially on a Sunday morning when that is where our handicapped people would actually exit their vehicles or actually park their vehicles, so they don't have so far to walk, but they'll park directly in front of the building, as well as in an open lot that we have next door. So my concern is about the additional parking that this would generate and what their plan is to address that.
Okay, thank you for bringing up your concerns. I would point out a couple things to you. So Ms. Smith can correct me, but there is a city council process for petitioning for handicap placards for on-street parking spaces that you might consider if the situation you're describing. This ordinance, this ADU ordinance, doesn't really have a parking component to it. So it's not something we're going to take into consideration as we vote whether or not to approve this permit. They could build this as of right if they basically walled off an area of about 160 square feet within the basement, and it wouldn't even come before this board. So it's only before this board because it's slightly larger, and it's only slightly larger because it's in with the existing footprint of the building. So I don't know how helpful of a context that is to you. All I'm really saying is we are sympathetic to your concern. It's not within our purview really to help. What we can do is, inform you maybe about the handicap signage process, which I've had some experience with previously. Seems to work well. And what we always encourage any applicant to do is to be a good neighbor. Some folks are better at heeding that advice than others, but we're not in a position where we can mediate that.
My assumption was still that you had addressed the parking concerns on other buildings as well, so that this would be certainly something that should have addressed with this one, with a increased number of dwellings and only, I believe it's 6 spaces that they have available to begin with. So.
I can understand that sentiment, but every application is a little bit different. This is for an accessory dwelling unit, and within the city, there's an ordinance that permits these as of right if they're less than 900 square feet. That's not just true within the city, it's true within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This particular application comes before us because you have to go before the board only if you're exceeding that size requirement or some of the other dimensional controls related to setbacks that don't apply here.
Understood.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to sort of be the bearer of bad news, but
no, you've helped, because we can now just figure out what we need to do to apply for a handicap signage.
Yep.
So.
Through the chair, the applicant's welcome to email staff, and we're more than happy to assist them with navigating that process. I will just clarify, it's just one additional dwelling unit, and there's only one bedroom in that unit.
Okay.
And it still could result in 2 cars. That's the concern. But understand it's not your purview, so.
Yeah, it's planning at worcestermass.gov.
Planning at worcestermass.gov. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're back to closing the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes, hearing is closed.
And a motion to approve the special permit ADU for 4A 7th Street, subject to staff recommended conditions of approval on page 3 of the staff memo.
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 9, which is another public hearing for a zoning ordinance amendment related to driveways, pavements, and permits.
Through the chair, I do know we have the applicant for the last item here. I'm just curious if there's anyone from the public that might be interested in that, because that's a city administration initiated change. If you're willing to go out of order, we could take the next item, which I know the applicant is in the room for.
Oh, sure, I'm willing to go out of order. So let's go to item number 10, 3 Harding Street, a public hearing for a zoning map amendment.
Hello.
Hi.
I think we're, trying to change the, well, pretty much keep the zoning in the 3 Harding building. Somehow, when they drew the line, they put a corner of the building into a different zone.
Yeah, this happened quite a bit in the city because they didn't draw the lines on the property lines. They drew the lines however they drew them. So understood. I also believe, and staff can correct me on this, so the idea here is to make the parcel wholly be G3 and extend the CCOD onto the parcel that's adjacent to it right now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any staff want to add any additional comments?
Sure, through the chair. I won't belabor all the different points because I know the board members are very familiar as we just lengthily discussed the CCOD. But today at the site, there's a single story tall repair garage that's been in place since the early 1930s. This site has some interesting history with the canal, which is in Harding Street, that shaped this area much differently in the past, but over time it's had different zoning, manufacturing zoning, and then business zoning. So the applicant's really looking to get rid of that split zone condition where you see the circle that I highlighted where the hatched area is in the bottom left in yellow there. So they're just looking to pull that BG3s, eliminate the RG5 zone in that back corner. That'll allow them to operate the existing use by right if the CCOD were not established in that location as well. But the applicant is actually looking, from our understanding, to enable potential future development in other modes, and is looking to pull the CCOD on because there are a lot of different benefits to that, including reductions in parking that are automatic for flexibility for reuse. So that's, I believe, what's driving the applicant's request. Similar district in terms of uses, RG5 and BG3 both allow most residential uses, so high-rise still allowed in both districts. The main difference is that the business district variety of additional non-residential uses are opened compared to the residential zone. And then within the CCOD, most of the density requirements are far reduced over what they would be in any of the underlying zones, providing much more flexibility with lot area, which this lot is unusually small. It's 2,000 square feet, so a very small area, which would make challenging to facilitate redevelopment, less frontage than you would typically see. So again, kind of reducing some of those barriers to entry for redeveloping the property, for example, for a residential or mixed use component. So that is the purpose. I won't get into more than that. Your role in this matter is simply to make a recommendation to City Council, so that can be favorable, not, or with modifications. In this case, that is what's in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Is there anyone online wishing to speak on this item? And reminder, *9 to raise your hand or the hand icon.
And while folks are doing that, just to clarify too, the applicant was made aware that as they pulled the CCOD over, it creates a nonconformity relative to the automotive use. So we did discuss that at length, and their understanding that that creates that challenge. Right now, they would still need special permission because of the residential zoning, so it's just sort of trading or exchanging where that nonconformity exists. But they're fully aware that that is not sort of the intent of CCOD. Could continue to operate as privileged, but any alterations or expansions to that would need special permission. Just to clarify that too.
Okay, anybody with their hand up? Nope, seeing none. Board members?
This seems like a pretty reasonable request, and Wrights kind of gets the whole lot into the BG3 and the CCOD, so I'm happy to support it.
Mr. King?
Happy to support. Thank you.
Mr. Delera?
Me too.
Mr. Toomey?
Yeah, seems like a sensible thing to do.
I agree. We need to close the hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. Toomey?
Yes.
And through the chair, just to clarify, because it's not a special permit, Mr. Toomey is still not eligible to vote, so I apologize.
Thank you, appreciate that. Your vote doesn't count to close the hearing, I guess. Did you vote already? No. Okay, Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. 4-0, hearing is closed, and we're ready for a motion on the item.
Motion to favorably recommend to City Council the zoning map amendment for 3 Harding Street.
Thank you.
Second.
We haven't quite voted yet, but you're welcome anyway. On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 4-0. All right, back to item number 9 for the driveways, pavements, and permits. This is a public hearing for zoning ordinance amendment.
So through the chair, this is Michelle Smith in the city's planning division. I'm going to delete all of my markups here, and then I'll give you my summary of the petition. So this is a petition that's coming from the city administration through the city manager to amend the text of the city's zoning ordinance relative to what was a provision we adopted back in 2020, which relates to paving of front yards effectively. So it talks a lot about impervious thresholds in certain areas, the number of curb cuts with an attempt to minimize what was aesthetically and from a stormwater management perspective, a practice that was unsafe, also from a pedestrian safety and vehicular safety standpoint, where we were seeing large unrestricted curb cuts being added, whole front yards that were landscaped being turned into parking, all sorts of things that we couldn't enforce in our current zoning ordinance or in our older zoning ordinance. So we adopted these provisions back in 2020. We've now implemented them for 5 years, and there's some clarifications to the language that we're looking to add. So really, the proposal in front of you seeks to add new definitions as well as update existing definitions for clarity, clarify language within the text of the ordinance itself. So that's the main piece of this ordinance. It also restores language that was accidentally deleted inadvertently when that change got put into place, that deleted out language that explicitly allowed the zoning board to grant special permission for modifications to drive-through lanes. So it just restores that back in. So really just introducing additional clarity, which aligns with existing interpretations. The additional component beyond those kind of more housekeeping, administrative, or clerical changes, I would call them, is that it's proposing to establish a new permit for paving that would be issued through inspectional services. Backing up on this, in August of 2023, the then Commissioner of Inspectional Services, Chris Spencer, had put forward this suite of changes, a variety of changes related to those clarifications and interpretation, which we realized over practice were not clear. And recognizing some of the challenges with enforcement around paving, we adopted new regulations related to paving. People didn't know about those, so we were finding that very much complaint-driven environment where folks would complain about their neighbor having made changes to their yard. The neighbor would have an ISD go out, take a look at the property, cite them in violation. The owner would be frustrated because they didn't know about the changes in the regulations. So there was this learning curve that was happening at the same time. And so the proposal from the administration was to create a permit for paving that would educate the contractors and require homeowners and contractors to obtain this permit to pave, which we do not currently have. So the permits you would get today, you want to put in a new driveway. If you need a curb cut, then you have a permit. If you want to just pave your whole yard, you don't need a permit to do that. So this established parameters within the front yard that we regulate, and then obviously we regulate areas and critical kind of water supply protection areas, as well as near wet features in the city. Those are things that we regulate to a degree. But we don't have a permit for paving. So this proposed to newly create a permit for paving that would come out of the Inspectional Services Department. At the time, there were a lot of questions from the City Council about kind of operationally how that would work and some concerns around that. So rather than come to the Planning Board, which is a typical matter, of course, for an ordinance amendment, this went to the Economic Development Committee, had a bunch of discussion, was referred back to the administration to basically revisit. And then in May of this year, the Law Department adjusted the language to reflect what the City Council had requested and what this administration had proposed before Chris Spencer left, and resubmitted that. Given that it's been 2 years since that was initially submitted, we had a variety of additional input into that, so we kind of paused and looked at all the language and have since made additional suggestions. So there was a red line document that we provided you all, which has a series of different color coding that's included. And just to kind of walk you through that color coding, I believe it's in the packet here. So if you look on the first page of that, you'll see where we kind of outline what's what. Basically, our proposed changes to the petition that's been referred to you by City Council are in blue. And then the red text is basically what was changing before. So red strike through is what was proposed to be deleted. Red addition is what was proposed to be added. Our blue additions are further changes or iterations on that. So this is what we are recommending you recommend to the City Council. And then the City Council will ultimately hear this. Again, I'm happy to go through all of this. A lot of this is just kind of minutia in terms of language, but we're trying to differentiate between a driveway and a curb cut, which is not clear in the ordinance now. Provide clarifications around what we mean by front yards, what we mean by yards more generally when we talk about these terms. So really a lot of it is terminology that we're including, and then making everything kind of align with the way that we currently interpret things more clearly in the language of the ordinance, which should provide a better experience for customers and make all of our lives easier in interpreting. So that's really kind of the brunt of that. The one section that is about paving, or the permit for paving, is on, I apologize because that page is not numbered, but
It's page 43 of the packet. if
there you
that's
go.
helpful to my fellow board
Basically,
members.
under Article 4, Section 7A2, there's a second paragraph that's mostly in red with one change in blue. That section is where they're proposing to create the paving permit. The only edit that we've added to that is where it says, basically, it's not required if you, or rather, the paving permit won't be issued if they need site plan review, and we've added or parking plan review. So basically, if they're coming in front of the planning board for that, they have to get that first before they could get the permit. So that's the only change that we've offered up. But we do have a memo from Inspectional Services. So you'll see the memorandum that was provided by Deputy Commissioner Horn, which requests that this board strike that entire section and eliminate the paving permit due to some concerns about resource constraints around implementation of that, mostly related to staffing. As you can imagine, a new permit requires a whole new business process as well as the resources to implement that when it comes to enforcement, as well as assistance with customers, creating an application, overseeing that, and then enforcing compliance with it. So they've expressed some concerns around doing that and are essentially requesting that the board strike that provision. As well as allow the city to continue to have conversations interdepartmentally with a variety of new folks, including the new Commissioner of Inspectional Services, who would ultimately implement any such regulation. And they're specifically suggesting evaluating whether Inspectional Services is the right department also to take that responsibility on. So those are the concerns that they framed for you. Ultimately, we would ask simply that if you feel strongly about the paving permit, and that's something you want to hold or discuss further, that it may make sense to bifurcate the two amendments and at least proceed with the clerical items if the board's amenable to that. If the board is amenable to striking that in response to inspectional services comments, or if you feel it's important to keep that, you're welcome to do that as well. We just want to make sure that the clerical items move on, because now they've been sitting for nearly 5 years, not just 3 years. So we want to make sure that those move forward, and I'm more than happy to talk about, like I said, any of those. But this has a long history, just not before this board. We're just recommending that the petition that was submitted by the administration be further modified with staff changes, and then it's up to you if you want to take ISD's suggestion and strike that paving permit section in your recommendation to council.
Okay, so just to be clear, options on the table are recommend favorably as is, recommend favorably striking the second paragraph as discussed, or recommend splitting into two separate petitions for consideration?
So if you recommend as is, it would not include any of the blue edits that you're seeing there. So
Okay, so
you
recommend
most likely wanna-
with staff's blue edits,
Yep.
but what I'm trying to get to is, what's the difference between recommending with edits striking the thing that's being requested to be stricken by ISD versus recommending those things to be considered separately?
The only benefit to suggesting they be considered separately is if the city council or the board feels that it's particularly prudent to discuss further or rehash the paving permit piece. It doesn't necessarily completely leave the table and be removed. It would be kind of like put into a kind of quasi status for a potential further investigation or revisions to the ordinance. So you may, city council ultimately may do something to that effect anyway, so you don't necessarily need to do that, but just, again, if the board feels strongly that it's an important permit for the city to have, I think you could just mention that you want to make sure the administrative components move along and don't get tied up with concerns around the operations of how that permit would, function.
Actually get done?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, at least to me. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item before we move to board discussion? Star 9, hand icon.
I don't see anyone.
Yeah, I would apologize if you have waited through this whole meeting to talk about parking permits, but board members, any questions or comments?
No concerns with the clerical edits or staff's recommendations for the parking permit. I think I like the idea of it, but would follow the city's recommendation to kind of table it for now and come back to it when they are ready to kind of manage it.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Mr. King?
I would agree with Board Member McCormick on this. Thank you.
Mr. Delera?
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense to me too.
Mr. Toomey?
I think that ultimately becomes a city council decision, not ours anyhow.
Yes.
Yep, just a recommendation.
Yeah, for myself, I think but parking plan certainly seems like or parking permit, sorry, certainly seems like an okay idea. I do have some concern that we have a lot of rules we're not able to enforce now. So I am 100% that this should either be stricken or recommended to be considered separately. I don't really think functionally those are going to be different from this board's perspective. So I'm fine with either motion.
I would make a motion to favorably recommend to City Council the zoning ordinance amendment with DPRS's proposed edits, and to strike the section related to the proposed paving permit. Yeah.
I think that does it. Is there a second?
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
This is a zoning amendment. Mr. Toomey doesn't vote. Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so that's our recommendation. And moving on, A&Rs, there should only be one.
Through the chair, this is Olivia Hool in the Planning Division. So the only A&R before you tonight is for 22, 24, and 32 Canterbury Street. These are lots, 3 lots on a public street within the MG2 zoning district. This district has no minimum frontage requirement. However, the zoning ordinance does require a minimum of 20 feet of frontage for access on any lots in districts where there is no minimum requirement. So this lot, or this A&R is intending to reconfigure the lot lines to create 2 buildable lots, essentially just consolidating from 3 to 2. And these do provide at least 20 feet of frontage, in both cases more.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hool. Is there a motion to endorse?
Motion to endorse A&R 11B.
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 4-0. Are there any communication items? Hearing none. Anybody want to talk about board policy and procedure? Hearing none. 2 sets of minutes. Is there any corrections, or are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Motion to approve April 30th and July 9th minutes.
Second?
On the motion, Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Delera?
Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Yes.
I vote yes. That passes 4-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say
Second.
aye.
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 We're adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.